The session which we are starting now on this afternoon is about how do we build a healthcare system of compassion and trust, and how can a media play a role in that. For that, I would introduce our esteemed panelists today. So we have Mr. Ajay Maharaj. He's the head corporate communication at Fortis Healthcare. And he's leading the internal external communication for the Fortis Group Pan India. As we know, Fortis is one of the largest healthcare provider in our country. The role which Mr. Maharaj is playing in bridging the communication between the hospitals and the public and the media is very critical. So we look forward to hear some interesting insights that how media can play a better role, a more constructive role in building a healthcare of trust and compassion. We also have Dr. Karan Thakur. He's the Vice President at Operations and Communications at Indraprastha Apollo Hospitals, and he's an expert in health policy, health communication, operations management, and healthcare system. Dr. Thakur is representing another major and the premier healthcare provider of the country, which managing a chain of major hospital across the country. So welcome, Dr. Thakur, on this show, and we are looking forward to have some really insightful information from your side as well. We also have Sunalini Matthew. She is a senior deputy editor with the Hindu, India's national newspaper. She has an experience of 15 years with magazines, online and custom publishing, and a newspaper focusing on health, fitness, and nutrition. She is also a champion of health and women causes, and I welcome Sunalini on this show of Gratitude Week.
Thank you, Kamal.
We are also being joined today with Nikki Gupta. She is a co-founder and director of Teamwork Communication Group. She is also director of ISW Council, I must highlight that. And she is a specialized communication expert, and the Teamwork Communication is a specialized advisory group in the area of healthcare. Nikki Gupta is advising several brands and organizations in the area of healthcare in their communication and media relations. So thank you so much, Nikki, for joining this session today. So let us begin this important session. And some of you had actually joined in our last session itself. And what we heard and what we have heard in the last 6 days of this Gratitude Week, that every doctor, every professional highlighted there is a, why there is a trust deficit and how we are going to bridge it. And everyone highlighted that we need to have more counseling, more communication, more transparency between the hospitals and the patients and their attendants and the public at large. But what happens when the perceptions are built? As I said, that apart from the two stakeholders, the patient and the doctor, there is a third stakeholder, which is the elephant in the room, and that is media. We heard some of the doctors highlighting in the last session that 98% of healthcare system, they see that people are showing their gratitude and they are happy with the outcome. But the 2% of that where the outcome might have not been that positive makes the 98% of their life, because that become an overwhelming situation. So I'll begin with the a fast increasing trust deficit, and is there a role which has been played by media? And I'm not saying that there is a role; it may be a possibility, and I would like to understand from our experts today. So over the last decade, we have seen widening trust deficit between patients and doctors, and who also include the hospitals. Let me begin this with Mr. Ajay Maharaj. Ajay, what do you think? What has been what is your take on this? What has been the possible contributors of increasing trust deficit?
Thank you, Kamal. And like that, our topic of discussion today is regarding building trust and compassion. Basically, in the recent surveys which have been conducted by various industry bodies, both trust and compassion, or maybe the doctor-patient relationship, has come at the bottom of the grid. A lot of surveys have been conducted by different bodies, and we get to see that this is a major issue. There's a huge communication gap, and this is considered to be a challenge for the communicators as well. And to change the perception, the key barriers which needs to be addressed are, and which are on the current debate, which are going on, other hospitals are considered as the profit centers. Overcharging is another cause which keeps coming up, different media stories, or the patients and the outcomes are not right, or maybe some other times also. Doctors is also another thing which keeps coming up. In the recent past, we have seen that a lot of cases where the outcomes have not been good.
Mr. Maharaj, can you speak a little louder? Sorry.
Okay, and assault against the doctor has been another challenge which we are facing. And the fourth one has been the overpriced medical devices and other complications which come up. So as a communicator, it's our prime responsibility, what I feel, is to educate the masses, the patient, the media, and the various stakeholders. What is the, why it's happening and what is the reason behind it. And we have to transmit the right messages, identify the right platforms, and have to highlight the role of the private healthcare. As you rightly said, the 80% of treatment is happening at the private healthcare. And people have the trust, but a few cases which doesn't have the positive outcome, so they get highlighted in the media. So from my perspective, we really need the support of the media also, as an educator who can provide us with the right platform and give the right message to the people, educate them, and also make them aware of the various challenges the private healthcare is facing towards providing this quality care, which is one of the best in the world. In fact, when you look at India, it's one of the best quality care and at a very low cost and the price which we are providing. I think that's the challenge we are facing, and the media can be really supportive in
that. Thank you so much, Mr. Maharaj. So you are highlighting that there are, as a communicator, as a hospital, they need to communicate better to the patients as well as to the media, so that we can, kind of make them better aware of the thing. But I think you are trying to do that, on your day-to-day work as well. Mr. Thakur, and before I go to Sonalini to hear the media perspective on that, how do you see that? What has been the contribution of this growing trust deficit, and what is your take on that?
Yeah, thanks, Kamal, for having me here. Really appreciate what you're doing through this Gratitude Week. I think it's timely. If you look at the entire paradigm of trust, we have seen in the past few decades, unfortunately, an erosion of trust, not just with private healthcare, but with most institutions, unfortunately. Whether it is the police, whether it is the bureaucracy, the political classes, our systems, there has been an erosion of trust as a citizen towards the system. And I think that private healthcare does not remain immune to this social erosion that one is witnessing. Specifically for healthcare, one feels that the past few decades, the expectation that the public health system was supposed to deliver has not met the aspirations of citizens. And what that has done is it has shifted some of that onus, not all of it, some of that onus onto private hospitals. Once we see that that migration of expectations to the private healthcare, that's where people have certain expectations that they were expecting from public health has not been delivered, and therefore the private healthcare should have filled that gap. Primary to that gap was the cost of care. And I think that is where the crux of the problem is, where we as citizens feel that there is a societal entitlement that we must have towards good quality care, which is absolutely fair, to come at a reasonable cost of free, which again, as a citizen, I may aspire to have as a citizen some of the rights that I enjoy, but that has not been delivered. And that has led to what we are seeing today as erosion of trust and some of the issues that are relating, as Ajay had just alluded to. But if you look at the word trust itself, it has 2 or 3 attributes. It's reliability, it's truth to be conveyed to you by someone or somebody, and third is the fact that there has to be an ability. So when you trust somebody, there has to be that ability. I think on ability, most patients would grant us that private hospitals do have the ability to give care. But I think it's reliability and the truth or transparency is where I think we all need to work more on.
Thank you. So, Dr. Thakur, you are echoing the same sentiment that there need to be more communication, transparency, and you are also seeing that there is a overall, erosion of trust as the people are getting more educated. They are, looking for better accountability, and they also have the opinion that these are their rights to get a quality, equitable service, whether it is healthcare or any other service, whether it is you mentioned about even the police and the other public services. So let me go to Sunalini. Sunalini, you have been seeing the healthcare and private healthcare system, the increasing role of it. And then you have also been seeing and, reporting several stories where we see that apparently private healthcare sector looks like that this is a machine which, is there to fleece the patients, and the focus of the hospitals and doctors and maybe other medical professionals might be more towards how to make out of the misfortune of others than to provide the care itself, and which is largely is changing in the new narrative of COVID-19. But if you also see the some of the discussion which I heard in the last session was that if we see the private healthcare and the government healthcare cost of it, so the government healthcare cost is much higher than the private healthcare cost, as one of the esteemed panelists highlight that if you are going to a private super specialty hospital, the cost of the bed may be around 25,000-30,000 rupees, while in the government system it is 80,000, and this is all prepaid by people like us, people like you, and all the taxpayers of the country. How do you people, how medias, perceive when a case of, let's say, this kind comes to them that, okay, there may be an apparent higher charging or overcharging in this case, and what kind of due diligence, goes through that, okay, what might have been the reason, what kind of treatment was given, what was the need of that treatment, was there a need of ICU, what was the condition of the patient when the patient was rolled into the operation theater or in the ICU. Diligence media normally does in those kind of cases. Sunalini.
Yeah, that's a tricky question because obviously different media houses operate differently, right? And I'll give you a very simple example. Forget looking at the cost of the bed and the cost that the hospital has to put in. The simple example was a recent suicide, right? Different media houses of Sushant Singh. Different media houses reported it very differently, right? So some media houses already have protocols behind them to say this is how you're going to report on suicide, right? A lot of media houses don't, which is why you have things, people coming out and saying he committed suicide, which we all know is not the way to report it. And this is what happened. He had this fight, this baby, whatever, all those rumors that were happening. So it really depends on the protocols that your individual media house has put in place. Not many media houses have put in place protocols, right? There are a few who have. So I think as like you've pointed out, we need to put in place those protocols collectively as a media, especially not just the English media, right? The vernacular media, as well as TV channels, which have a huge influence. So I think putting protocols in place are important. The second thing is the media is not there for the healthcare system. The media is there for the people. And I think that's something we need to understand very clearly, that we are reporting to give the most information that we have at a particular point in time to our reader, because our priority lies with them, not to the doctor, not to the, of course, we try to do justice, right? Because the aim is always to report correctly, right? Report the facts. That's what we're all taught in journalism school. And I know you've been taught that too, right? The point is to report the facts. Follow-up stories can be done. Unfortunately, in the media, we don't have that much of a system of doing follow-up stories. So suppose I say, so-and-so hospital is charging 400 times what a government hospital, so-and-so a private hospital is charging 400 times what a government hospital is charging. I am reporting that. It is the truth. There is nothing wrong with that reporting. My reader needs to know that. And therefore, my reader can make a judgment on whether for a particular COVID-19 or whatever the problem is, I should know that as a reader so that I can then make my choice on whether, if, God forbid, I get this terrible infection, should I go to a government hospital or should I go to a private hospital? So I can make that intelligent decision. I may not have 4 lakh to shell out at this particular point, right? Irrespective of what the bed costs, great treatment, etc., I just may not be able to afford that, right? Yes, a follow-up can be done on how much this bed is, what the quality of care is, all of that can be done. We don't often do it. And that is something I admit to. But I think, and I keep saying this, even to my own journalists, we are here for the reader. We have to report what we are seeing. And there are no two ways about that. So we are not there for the healthcare system. We are not a platform for the healthcare system or any system, the political system, whoever. We are not there as a platform to promote their agenda or anybody's agenda for that matter. We are just here to report the truth in an ideal world.
Thank you so much, Sonali. This is very important, and I think there is no doubt about it that every media house is responsible towards their reader, the public at large, and they need to keep their interest in mind first before they report anything. My point also here is that are we doing more damage while we do immediate good? Because what is happening sometime, and this is what the question we are trying to just address today, that why the whole trust is deteriorating, and that trust deterioration also leads to a lot of other problems, which are the collateral damage of this whole thing. We have been hearing in the last session also, and you as a journalist also must be following it up, and that a doctor's son don't want to become doctor, like a farmer's son don't want to become farmer today. Why? Because the farmer is struggling day night under that sun, and then they're not able to earn adequately, which can run the family. But at the same time, it is not the case with the doctor. Doctors are earning well, but at the same time they are not getting that respect or that gratitude for which they are sacrificing. So that may be a reason. We will come to that. Let me just go to Nikki. And Nikki, you have been managing, I think, a lot of that there is a communication coming from a hospital, and there is there may be a scenario, a case which is also being reported by the media, and you may find yourself at a situation where there are two streams of perception. The hospital would feel that they are right, what they have done, and that is justifiable. Media will feel that what they are doing is completely justifiable because their duty lies to the readers, and they need to bring that fact out to the people. Where do you see that the overall perception gets changed in this process and can lead to something which is not the right outcome in this whole communication?
So thanks, Kamal. See, when it comes to the trust deficit, the major reason for this, I would say that patient, they have a lot of information. When they reach to doctor, they have already Googled enough things. What doctor is saying, they sometimes even don't believe to that. And the major reason that many taking too many consultation with the various doctors, that's also one of the major reason of bringing healthcare system in such scenario. When it comes to communication and handling media and the healthcare clients, both side, we really need to be do very transparent job. We really need to tell what we feel, and cost is a major concern, as all of them correctly said. But if you talk about the cost, that also we need to understand that everybody would like to go to the, nobody wants to question when it comes to the government hospital. Private hospitals, private healthcare, they are always questioned about for their cost, but they also want to go to the private hospitals, right? That's also one scenario. But we here, what we do in our communication as a major, we are a specialized healthcare communication firm. We always try to bridge the gap, and we try to provide the right information. In the recent scenario, we have seen the such case where one of our hospital client turned into a COVID hospital, and a leading electronic media house, English electronic media house, they did a story on the cost on the PPE kit. It was 5 times charged. Then when the media house approached us, we communicated to them, they spiced up a bit more and they ran the story. Then I spoke to the editor, we communicated that if we will not be charging, if the client, hospital will not be charging the PPE kit, how we are going to give the protection? The safety is also equally important. So when we communicated in the right way and the editor heard us, and they immediately stopped the story. So we need to be very, very clear in our communication, and we need to tell, then I think it can help us to change the perception. Not immediately, yes, it will take time.
Wonderful. So you brought us some interesting story in that. So let me then go to Ajay, on this. And Ajay, what happens, normally when, somebody, a patient is coming, it is possible that the patient asks for the best kind of services, they are, when they are taking admission in your hospital, and they may think, that they want, so they will ask for which category room you have, and the best category room they want, no matter how much, the frills are involved in that, which maybe it is an important during in COVID-19 also, because people are looking for private rooms, people are looking for, and definitely that adds on to a lot of the cost. Everything goes fine till the time the health outcome is good or okay, and they go happily out of the hospital. The moment the desired outcome has not come, this whole thing become the case of overcharging, fleecing, and apathy, medical negligence. If that does not happen, then it's all right. So how do you see that? And is there, are you able to communicate to the media that, this was the fringes, these were the services taken by the patient over the period? Do they, or are they receptible to those kind of information?
That's a very nice question, Kamal. And that's a challenge we face as the healthcare communicators, which Karan is also aware. Like, people ask for the best possible treatment, which is there, which can be done. And for most of the treatment, regular consent, regular counseling, everything is done for the patient. They're aware about the cost. They're aware about what kind of medication has been given. And to be, like, every disease has a different treatment protocol that people have to understand. For COVID also, what you said, people are getting treated with different protocols. Some might get treated at home isolation, some has to be hospitalized, some on oxygen, some on ventilation, and critical care is involved. So people have to understand that they can't just say, like, this is the treatment, this has to come at this cost. So that perception is there, like, why 4 lakh has been charged. If somebody's on a ventilator for 14 to 18 days, obviously the cost is going to come high. And it's going to be there because when you're talking about the PPE kits also, Obviously, everybody entering the ward, everybody treating the patient, they require a PPE kit for the same. We can't, we can't neglect the safety of our clinicians or our people who are serving the patients. So we have to ensure that with every protocol, safety, again, everything is followed. So that is very important. And regarding, as I said, we treat 25 lakh patients every year, out of which maybe 10 to 15 cases get really highlighted in the media. Why? One of the main reasons is because the outcome did not come as I desired. If this is a situation like most of the media houses, like I'm talking about the reputed one, they understand the situation, they come up with a version like Sonali said, like we talk for the people, definitely they have to talk for the people. And but to educate the people on what is actually required, why it was done, why this treatment was required, with this cost has come, that has to also be explained properly to the people. So they understand these are the challenges with the private healthcare faces. These are the kind of cost which is going to be there. And as I said earlier also, India is one of the cheapest and one of the best medical care which is provided in the world. And India is one of the cheapest in the world. The main issue in India comes because of the insurance. People don't buy insurance policies and they don't go ahead with that. So that becomes another challenge when they become a cash paying patient, they always expected a discount. And when the outcome is not right, they say that there was a medical negligence, the hospital didn't treat you well, the doctors were right. And these are the challenges we face quite often. So I think these are the things we have to look at, and that's the support we're expecting from the media. We write for the people, definitely write for the people. The people have to be aware this is the cost which actually comes out. This is what is required. We just kept the people, I think the media reporting, healthcare reporters have to get in depth into the situation, understand what is the cost, why it is required, and why these people have to pay, or maybe the patient has to pay that cost. So that's my only concern.
Dr. Karan, you are running hospitals in multiple parts of the country, and I'm sure you are getting those information, from all across. Many times what happens, especially I'm talking, and as Sonali also highlighted, that there are lack of protocols of due diligence, many times in the regional media or vernacular and all that. And you deal with them also. I'm sure your hospitals are dealing a lot of them. How many times you see that, and also keeping in mind that in many of the tier 2 cities where you may be having hospitals, or other smaller cities apart from metros, patients first go to multiple round of treatments, and over the period the condition keeps deteriorating, and they reach to a super specialty hospital at a time when it is already a very, very advanced stage of the need of treatment. And obviously many of them are then put on ICUs for longer time, I think sometimes more expensive medications, antibiotics, and so many things that leads to increased bill. But when again this outcome does not come, and they go to the media and say that, oh, we were charged for 20 days, 30 days, we were charged so much, and they kept us in the ICU. Nobody goes to the detailing of that okay, why the ICU was needed. So do you see that, or how do you try to communicate to the media at that level, or is your hospital coming up with some kind of ways and means through which you can bring in better information to the patients at every stage of the work, and can maybe have a better grievance redressal system? How do you do that?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Kamala. There are some aspects to it, so I'll deal with it one by one. As Ajay just mentioned, unfortunately in healthcare we have a situation which is like the goalkeeper's paradox. He may defend without letting the ball go past him for 89 minutes of the game, and then in the last 1 minute there's a goal, and he's blamed for all that went wrong. Those 89 minutes are forgotten. Similarly in healthcare, every case is expected to have a certain outcome, whereas the disease progression and the outcome may be very different case to case. So I may have referred to a patient who may have recovered from X disease, but another person may not have recovered from it. So sometimes what happens is there is a lot of hearsay around disease outcomes and assumptions that now that you have reached an Apollo or a Fortis or a Max or any others, you are expected to get through it. We are not gods. We are the first ones to accept this fact that every disease progression is a challenge, and ensuring an outcome to the best of our ability is possible. But to guarantee an outcome, I mean, nobody makes that promise. Number two, in terms of communication, I think when things go bad and when the media reports, by all means, I think the public, the wider audience that Sonali mentioned, they have a right to communicate to them. But today, the type of words that are bandied about, I don't think make for fair or balanced or fact-based reporting. To call hospitals and doctors looters, to use a legal term negligence so freely, where anything could be amounting to negligence, where a delayed care is called murder. I think those type of languages need to be tempered when we are discussing science. Just like we don't expect scientists to use fanciful language, we want them to be tempered. Health reporting should be health reporting. It cannot become sensationalized for TRPs or for gain of more readers or viewers. So we've seen this, but specifically to your question, we've seen not only this in tier 2, tier 3, but also in mainstream media, where this sort of sensationalizing, for whatever reason, may serve for good TRPs on the evening news, but it damages hospitals and doctors immensely. And I think that's where some amount of checks and balance need to be put in place. What can hospitals do? I think, and I'm the first to admit, we have not done a job good enough to communicate adequately to patients and their relatives. We must do more. And I think in the previous panel also, that was one thing that came out very clearly. If you see how good medical records are progressing day to day on a patient's condition versus how we communicate, that very good medical record documentation is abysmal. It seems as if they're not even the same documents versus what was communicated. So while I take the point that we must communicate more and better, I think some of this reporting that is happening today is not purely fact-based.
Thank you so much, Karan. So Sonali, I think wanted to say something on that, but I'll come to Sonali and with the question also. Sonali, do you see that there is an overall, erosion of the trend of writing in-depth stories in media? For example, when you are writing a financial scandal, it is written in so much of chronological order, and the journalists go each step and stepwise that where and how the things went to a certain level where wrongdoing happened. Do we do the same kind of thing in healthcare reporting, or it is just taken for granted? And sometimes do you also see that in media, do they have some kind of training process that if somebody is coming to the health reporting, at least these are the basic parameters that person should complete in terms of health reporting? Because as Karan said, this is a science, and everyone may not understand the terms and then the terminology and then their impact and their relevance and their connections with other things. Yes,
so Kamal, yeah, this is where I go back. Media is not all the same. We are not one homogeneous group, right? And there are different kinds of media with different kinds of checks and balances. We at the Hindu have very stringent checks and balances. You don't just write a story and put it out there. You write a story, it will go to the desk, it will go to the editor. It's a very old-fashioned way of doing things, which is why we are not, the quickest. We will not be able to report stories immediately within 5 minutes, right? That's because there are protocols, there are checks and balances in place. Journalists come from different backgrounds, which is why we have those checks and balances in place. Because we have more senior editors who will be able to guide journalists on, have you checked this with the doctor, right? If I'm writing a story on cancer, the last thing I want to do is to put out an incorrect term or to give an explanation that is incorrect. And we look at our jobs a lot of the time, especially when we are doing lifestyle related reporting. We look at our jobs as a conduit between the doctor and the reader, because we want to give the reader the best explanation of the science behind it, right? So I will also therefore draw your attention to the role of the media in what, in COVID reporting, for instance, right? The fact that we have been able to, and this is not just speaking about the Hindu, right? This is for all media. We have been able to a great extent to put out information that it is necessary to wear a mask. Correct? We have, I think, been to some extent fairly successful in that. We don't, therefore, we are feeders into the into good practices amongst our readers, good health practices amongst our readers. Wash your hands, carry a sanitizer. These are things that doctors have put out through us to people. But again, I go back to the fact that we are not here to promote agendas of doctors. We are not here to promote agendas of hospitals, and we are not here to become echo chambers of, various private hospitals and echoing what they want to tell the public. We are not, that is not our job. Our job is to communicate the facts. So if a hospital is overcharging, not overcharging, that's an incorrect word. If a hospital is charging 400 times for a PPE kit, or 5 times, or whatever the number is, it is our job to report it.
Certainly. I know we are not at all, I think, arguing on that. What we are trying to understand that, when we say that our agenda is the public interest, I think health is one of the biggest public interest agenda. 100%. And as all stakeholders, it is very essential for everyone. And that's why we are, talking today. We have been talking with so many doctors and, policymakers and healthcare professionals. But I think we, you, Ajay, so many journalists who are also risking their lives, going out, reporting, going to even sometime hospitals during this time. Yeah. So this is a very, very important, the partnership which has to keep going on, and the agenda of health for all has to be served, not of any section or industry.
Right. So sorry, Kamal, but I think that's another problem. We have now begun to see health as an industry. We don't see it as a service, right? And the moment we see something as an industry, and this is not, this is also for us to think about it. In the previous session, Dr. Somani had pointed out, he said, why does a class 12 student become a doctor? And he named 2 reasons. And he said, one is respect and one is financial security, right? And therein lies the problem. The child, therefore, has not thought, this is something I enjoy doing. This is something, so the idea of service may come much later, right? It probably comes in your 30s or 40s. But just that initial thing of, this is something I enjoy doing. Not that, oh, my father was a doctor, my mother was a doctor, and oh, doctors are really respected in society. That's not why you become a doctor. That's not why we become journalists. That's not why we do the jobs we do. We should, in an ideal world, be doing a certain job, whatever that job may be, because we enjoy it, because we're curious about it. And later in life, yes, the idea of service, right? So a person joining the army, I think, again, same thing. You join it maybe because you like the physicality of it. At some point, it dawns on you that, yes, the idea of service appeals to me. And I think that's where, whether the doctor's in the private sector, whether in the public sector, or whether the journalist is, again, whether it's a journalist or anybody, I think maybe we need to go back to that a little, rather than calling it an industry and thinking of it as an industry, which then becomes, all your capital, look at it as a service that we're providing.
A very valid point, Sonalini, on this, and this reminds me, when why we started this Gratitude Week, and we started this Gratitude Week on the National Doctors Day, which is celebrated on the birth and death anniversary of Dr. V.C. Roy, and the kind of emotions you are trying to highlight, that when you are really attached and enjoy what you want to do. And that has been the the epitome of how our doctors have been Dr. V.C. Rai, despite being the chief minister of the state, used to do the he used to see the patients, and every day he used to see the patient, and he kept doing that throughout his tenure as CM or as a politician or as a doctor. So that's where those value system comes in. So your point is very valid, and I'm sure that we all need to work towards it. Nikki, you heard about the responsibility towards the people, and you have also heard that the challenges which are coming in. What kind of cases you might have seen where this kind of sensationalizing of the news might have taken the front seat instead of understanding the issue itself? And Sonalini also highlighted that different media has different protocols and system to vet the stories. Would you like to share some case?
Certainly, Kamal. So I would like to discuss on the point that Sonalini and the other panelists said this. When it comes to electronic media, as in the morning session, Harish Pillai was also saying that he doesn't watch electronic channels, TV channels, because it affects his mental health, right? Electronic channel, I'm not because being into communication part, I'm not pointing out anybody, but yeah, I'm trying to be balanced in my communication and the conversation that we are having. See, we have various cases. I think in a week we handle 7 to 8 such cases. I'll tell you a very good example in a Patna case where the doctor was doing the CPR on a patient, while the patient family reported that doctor was jumping on his chest. Okay. So, and it created, all the national electronic media. It was all the front pages that, the patient was died and still the patient, doctors were jumping. I can tell you the whole story headlines. I still remember, it's been a while, of this case ki mara pada tha patient wo aur shav pe kudte rahe doctor. That was the story, and you will not believe this story was stretched for almost 15 days. Almost we spoke to all the top editors of electronic media houses. So spicing up things in electronic media, I would say it's too much for TRP they do. And in fact, I would say in the print media fraternity also, many times they question, on the new media is also one challenge which healthcare industry is going to face, because they are not going to any media houses. They are, him directly tagging to ministers. They are directly speaking out, raising their concerns and all, which is leading to the another next level. So there are multiple ways that we need to handle the situation. I'll give you one more example where in another big multinational, hospital brand, where the patient was served the tea, but the tea bag which they got, it was written 1 day expiry sugar, and they created the whole mess. The whole media was called in the hospital, and any kind of a crisis is a crisis. It's not always related to life and death, but yes, crisis in healthcare they can create, because most of the time patient is reaching out to the media houses and they feel what the patient is saying, they are always right. While we always try to communicate in a balanced way, we empathize with their patient situation, but at the same time, we need to understand what brands want to communicate and what is their problem, their challenges, right?
Thank you, Nikki, for bringing this interesting case also. I remember, I think it was the case of where a patient collapsed in a ICU, and the doctors or the, I think, attendants there were trying to give the CPR.
Yeah.
And that was unfortunate outcome that the patient actually could not be revived. But when the patient was, I think, was informed that has died to the family thought that actually the doctors were giving the CPR to the dead body and keeping the dead body in the ICU for long. This was the claim, and this was blown out of proportion. You highlighted an important point, which is about the new media. So, Ajay, how, this new media, so Sunalini talked about that newspapers like Hindu have very well led vetting process, diligence, editors are involved, and then things go to the public so that the public keep getting the right balanced information.
I would like to add here, but not Hindu definitely they have this system, but not all the media houses.
Yes. So that is a challenge. But what happens, Ajay, when every person has got their own media? Everyone has got their own. They're all reporters now, and we are talking about training our journalists to be more sensitive, to understand the terminology, the processes. Here, the 1.35 billion people can become potential journalists, and they all are writing what they are writing, and they are all alleging what they are alleging, and everything is a news. And as Dr. Somani previously said, that 20-30 cases in a day which are going good, happy, health has been retained and restored, and one case, and those Facebook posts may get much more of trauma and allegations to you than the 20 other good cases. So how do you deal with that, with this new media surge of allegations?
Very valid question, Kamal, and I'd like to add on to something what Nikki had said earlier, that everybody reaching the hospital Googles the information. So that's the problem where everything starts. When they start Googling the information and they try to become a doctor themselves. That's the first concern we have, because a doctor is a doctor, is going to prescribe the medication according to the clinical, what is the requirement of the patient, what is the criticality, what's required, like they have to prescribe the actual care, what is required. But looking at Google, the outcomes can be different, the patients can be different. So that's a major concern for us, where everybody becomes a doctor. And secondly, new media, like basically right now, the social media is very, very in full action, you can say that, very dynamic as of now. And everybody is going to dive into the Prime Minister or the Health Minister or each and every influential person or different NGOs and everything, they get onto that whenever something is happening. Like you talked about a case where we're jumping on doctors, or jumping on the patient to a tea bag or anything. So we have to be prepared on that part. So that's very, very challenging, because print media, we get time to respond to the queries. At least most of the journalists connect with us. They want to know our side of the story. So we will give it to them, so they are able to capture it and provide it. And so with the electronic media, it's also pretty challenging, because they want an electronic bite. If you don't give them a bite, or maybe we're trying to gather information, they run the story and they try to add on to the whatever quote or what we provide. But the new media, like the social media, is the one which is very, very dynamic as of now. And that's a challenge which we all are facing, because they have been tagging at all the platform, all the ministers, all the chief ministers and different bodies. And to come up with the right justification becomes an issue. WhatsApp platform is being used, and different kind of information on the WhatsApp university is being shared. So a lot of videos get viral on that. So, like recently, another private hospital in Gurgaon had some video which was going on for a long time, where the lady was accusing the hospital or something. So you don't get the right time to come across and put your point of view and give your statement across in the right directive and basically explain the situation to them. It's a big challenge. We all are facing it, and we have to be very, very, 24/7 kind of a thing. It has happened now. We have to be active 24/7. We have to screen each and every portal which can be possibly screened to get the information where what is happening. Good outcomes and good news is taken for granted for sure. That's what people expect. Whenever there's an outcome which is not appropriate, it becomes a story for us. So that's the future.
Good news is promoted as a promotional stories.
Yes.
They don't consider it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's something is taken for granted. The outcomes and good news is always taken for granted. And whenever there's an issue, or if any small issue can be also highlighted and taken to different, that's a huge challenge for us also.
Well, thank you, Ajay, for highlighting this. And definitely, it is a challenging, as you are saying, to deal with the new media. Dr. Karan, see, many times all this which goes to the media, whether new or old or traditional, is also the outcome of the feelings which the patients and their attendants may be having at that time. uh, Most of the people, and we know that in healthcare system, everyone who come, except for a situation where the childbirth is involved or cosmetic surgery is involved, normally the people come to a hospital are distressed. And many a time, any kind of you know handling which can be perceived as mishandling at the time of acute distress you are in, and especially when either you have lost the some lives, somebody dear to you, or you are seeing acute sufferings there. How do you people also try to mitigate that these things are not going or aggravating, and we are able to empathize our patients and their attendants at all possible level? And I'm talking from the guard on the gate to the somebody on the front desk to the nurse who take care at the ward.
Absolutely. And that is, you've hit the nail on the head, how to really change this current scenario. Just one comment on what we discussed on social media. I think that, maybe it's time that some sort of fact checking, whether it is a loose group of people who are interested in medical facts or doctors, put out facts rather than what is being peddled to be facts. Should be done probably is one solution. We're seeing how effective fact checking has been in the political realm. When political leaders say something, there is an army of people who are also fact checking and putting it out there. CNN does that. It has a fact checker which is putting out against a range of politicians when they make any proclamation. So maybe in healthcare that is required. Who will do it? How will it be done? I don't have the answer there, but maybe that's one route. On the second point that you raised, I think that's where the crux is. Patients and their families do have rights. They do have a right to know what is happening to their family member or to a patient themselves. This needs to be communicated in a language and in a manner that they appreciate, understand, and can absorb. So that is the job of hospitals that we must do, and we do, which includes training to the staff, which means communication at set intervals of time and in a manner in which patients do understand. So training will have to be much, much more rigorous for every staff member, as it is happening now also in hospitals, but clearly more needs to be done on that front. Then trust accretive exercises like having patient support groups that are formed where they can informally discuss conditions, doctors, hospitals. That helps. But then this should become a constructive exercise rather than naming and shaming only. If somebody were to tell me that they've gone through a similar condition and this is what they went through and that they've gotten out of it, it helps another person go through that journey with a little bit more confidence and trust. So I think that is one element, training, and the other is of patient support groups that may help in cutting through all of the misinformation or lack of information that may exist.
Thank you. So that's important aspect, and I'm sure that all other hospitals are also trying to do the same thing, especially at the private space. Sonalini, so we will be closing this session. So I would request for the last your remark on this. You said that every media, and I, as a I trained as a journalist and worked as a journalist, so I also believe that every media has the prime responsibility of addressing the concern of the people and what is good for people. And health is something which is the biggest aspect of our life. And I think media has also a greater role of addressing those this aspect, that why we don't still consider health as one of the major issue around us? Why still we don't, our governments are not bothered about investing adequate resources in health? Why we are always, more focused on what is happening in our neighborhood? Whether sometime it is intruding or not, but at the same time, we are preoccupied, and we are not seeing. So how much of media can actually play a role that health become the supreme agenda, the first agenda? Because I believe, and I believe, others will echo this sentiment, that this pandemic at least has shown that nothing comes before health. Nothing. So are media going to play a role that the health of the people become the biggest agenda, and anyone and everyone who is contributing to that is either supported or criticized constructively? What's the role media can play in that?
So there are 2 or 3 things. One is, you mentioned governments which don't invest adequately in health. And I think it's for all of us, you, me, everybody, to now demand that there is more investing in health, right? The media can play a huge role in that demand, right? But it's not only the media. We should also then be in a position to vote based on that, and not vote based on any other agenda, right? We need to put health at the top of our own priority when we vote, right? The second is, I think if the media can focus a great deal more on prevention and protecting ourselves, and in some way sparking our own, as people of society, sparking our interest, and that continued interest in health. Now we are in this COVID situation, everybody's very bothered about health. But to maintain that through and through, by putting health stories, giving health stories prominence, that is important. For instance, in our app now, if you look at our app, along with national news, city-based news, international news, we have a wellness tab as well, right? So if all of us can do that as media, to put health upfront, to make it important, that would really help, and to focus on prevention. I cannot stress this enough. And how do we focus on prevention? By bringing about behavior change. So behavior change, since a lot of people are now going back to work, and people are only going back, 30% of the workforce, 40% of the workforce. How are companies deciding which 30% or which 40% to actually bring back? A lot of companies are saying, if you smoke, please stay at home and work. If you chew tobacco, please stay at home and work. So bringing these aspects out, that health is of primary importance. And therefore, we need behavior change. What are companies indirectly saying? Companies are indirectly saying, please change your behavior. Please stop smoking and then come back to work. Please stop chewing tobacco and then come back to work. And I think if the media can highlight those stories, I think that will be good for society at large. So again, I think prevention hinged on behavior change. And if the media can bring out the health issue, which perhaps it will in the future elections that are to happen, that will be great too. And then we all need to vote accordingly as well.
Thank you so much. So, Nikki, your final remark on this, and this is on the important aspect of. So what we have seen, Sonalini is saying that the media has to play a greater role in wellness, in prevention, in awareness of health. What we have seen over the period, and you can help us understand better, that the space dedicated to health in media has over the period evaporated. There is hardly a dedicated space for media. Maybe so like you have a political theater in papers, nobody has health of the nation, where you report health every day, where you report or health every day, or the the areas to improve upon and health every day. in the pandemic time, almost the entire media is the health media. How do you see that? And should the media take some, take away from here? And when we come out of this pandemic, should there be a section of health of the nation in every media talking about health, so that the agenda is not getting out of the mind, out of sight, and is not also, getting, out of the follow-ups, as Sonalini said?
Absolutely, Kamal. So this pandemic will certainly going to change the perception when it comes to the healthcare reporting and the healthcare challenges in the media and in the system that we face. It will improve. I would say there is some, in today's time, you absolutely correctly said that everybody is health reporter. Everybody is reporting health at some extent, if we forget about, business beat, everybody is health reporter. So keeping that in mind, media will certainly will opt for more health pages, and people will become more health conscious, and there will be a behavioral change. It will change the perception. It will change some doctor patient trust factor also. This will not just only will be a temporary change. I'm sure it will change going forward the whole scenario in India when it comes to healthcare reporting, healthcare communication, everything. And it will help healthcare system also going forward.
Thank you so much. So we end with this positive note that, the media, we as a industry contributors and the public and the people of this country will value more informations which are related to health. They will give more weightage to what comes first, and we believe this is a health which is the most important priority of life. Definitely our media reflect how our society think, and also our society thinks what our media reflect. There's a long way to go, and we expect that our media, our industry players, and everyone who is involved in that will be doing their best to ensure that the health agenda is supported and taken forward to the best of the manner, even despite this pandemic. So thank you so much, all of you, for joining today.